Just take a second and think about your home. You've got the refrigerator, the dishwasher, maybe some power tools out in the garage. We use this stuff every single day. But how can we actually know if the companies making them are sustainable? I'm not talking about vague promises on a website, but real, hard, comparable data. Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why we even need a common language for sustainability. Then, we're going to zoom right into the appliance industry. We'll look at how things like product safety and a product's entire life cycle get measured. And finally, we'll see why having a standard like this one is such a game changer. You know, for the longest time, a huge problem in the sustainability world was that everyone was speaking a totally different language. Companies would just report whatever sounded good, which made it basically impossible for investors or even us as customers to compare them. That's exactly the problem the SASB standards were created to solve. The best way to think about these standards is like a nutritional label, but for a company's sustainability. There are 77 of them, each one tailored to a specific industry. And here's the most important part. They focus on what's called financially material. That's just a fancy way of saying they track the sustainability issues that can actually help or hurt a company's bottom line. It's all about connecting being green to actual financial results. And this right here, this is a huge deal. Back in 2022, the SASB standards were brought under the umbrella of the IFRS Foundation. Now, to give you some perspective, this is the same group that sets the accounting rules for most of the world. This move was massive. It took sustainability reporting from being this niche thing on the side and plopped it right into the financial mainstream, giving it some serious global authority. So, how do these things actually work? Well, they've got 5 key parts. It all starts with an industry description, so we know exactly who we're talking about. Next, it pinpoints the main disclosure topics, the big issues that really matter for that industry. Then you have the metrics to actually measure performance and technical protocols to make sure everyone is measuring the exact same way. And finally, you have activity metrics, which are super important for comparing companies. They track things like total products sold, so you can fairly compare a small company to a global giant. It's the whole shebang, a complete apples-to-apples framework. Okay, so enough with the theory. Let's see how this all works in the real world. We're going to zoom in on one specific standard, appliance manufacturing. This is where we see the rules for the companies that make the things we use pretty much every day. And here's the official definition, straight from the standard itself. It's perfectly clear. We're talking about the companies that design and build things like our washing machines and power drills, and they're operating on a global scale, getting their products to us through stores. So how does this system keep everything organized? It uses something called the Sustainable Industry Classification System, or SICS star. Think of it like a giant filing cabinet for the whole economy. And under SICS star, appliance manufacturing fits right into the consumer goods sector. This classification is so important because it makes sure that companies doing similar work, designing, making, and selling things globally, are all playing by the same rules and measured with the same yardstick. All right, so what's the first big issue for this industry? It's product safety. And let me tell you, this is not just a nice to have. For an appliance company, safety is a massive risk that hits everything from their customers and their brand to their bank account. Yeah, the standard is crystal clear about what's at stake here. I mean, when an appliance breaks down, it can cause fires, property damage, or even injuries. That leads to lawsuits for sure. But beyond all the legal costs, one big recall can absolutely destroy your brand's reputation for years to come. So managing this isn't just about following rules. It's about survival. So how do you measure that? Well, the standard uses a really smart mix of hard data and actual explanation. Companies have to report the raw numbers, how many recalls they had, and how many products were involved. They also have to disclose how much money they lost in legal battles. But, and this is just as important, they also have to talk about their process for managing these risks in the first place. This blend of numbers and narrative is so powerful because it forces them to be transparent, not just about their past mistakes, but about what they're actively doing to prevent future ones. Okay, let's get to the second major topic, the environment. But we're not just talking about what happens at the factory. The standard makes companies think about a product's entire life, from the materials used to build it, to the electricity it uses in your home, all the way to what happens when you finally get rid of it. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the standard actually frames environmental responsibility as a way to get ahead of the competition. Think about it. A more energy-efficient washing machine means a lower electricity bill for you, which makes it a more attractive product. And a company that designs its products to be easily recycled is going to have a much easier time dealing with new environmental regulations. It connects sustainability directly to business strategy. And again, the metrics are super specific. Companies have to report what percentage of their sales comes from products that have official certifications for energy efficiency. And then they have to describe what they're doing about the end-of-life problem. Are they using materials that can be recycled? Do they have programs to take back old products? Are they designing things to be taken apart easily so the parts can be reused instead of just ending up in a landfill? These are the kind of tough, specific questions the standard forces them to answer. Okay, so we've gone pretty deep on appliances, but now let's zoom back out and look at the bigger picture. Why is having a detailed, specific standard like this so incredibly powerful? This slide really says it all. It's a tale of two worlds. Without standards, you've got a mess of vague greenwashing claims and hidden risks. It's impossible to compare companies. But with standards, everything changes. Suddenly, you have comparable, data-driven facts. Investors can see the risks clearly. And everybody, companies, investors, regulators, is finally speaking the same trusted language. It really is the difference between total chaos and clarity. So who actually wins here? Well, it turns out just about everyone. Investors get a clear view of financial risks, like the cost of a big product recall. Companies can see how they stack up against their peers and build real trust. We, the consumers, get safer products and lower energy bills. And, of course, by pushing for better efficiency and recycling, the planet benefits too. It really creates this amazing virtuous cycle. So, the next time you look at your toaster or your washing machine, you'll know there's this incredibly detailed framework working behind the scenes to hold its manufacturer accountable. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. Now that you've seen how it works for appliances, what other everyday products out there do you think desperately need this kind of radical transparency?